He's going to tell us a little bit about his life, what he's been doing since he's been playing, and let's give him a great Golden Dunker welcome. Josh.
Thank you, Jim. First, I appreciate you guys for having me. I think this is a little bit easier than shooting a free throw, so I'll be okay. Some of you guys will get that, some of you won't. A little bit about me. I was born in Florida, small town Florida. I think my parents, we kind of bounced around a little bit. I ended up in Georgia, middle school to high school. Basketball started to really take off. One day I came home from school and my mom, she hit me with a crazy line, "We're moving." And I'm like, wow, again. So we were back to Florida. Things were just kind of like, I want to say like a roller coaster a little bit. But my uncle was actually up in St. Cloud. He was working for Golden Plum Chicken. And he presented her, hey, let him come up with me. I'll kind of take over, the basketball journey for him and kind of help him out a little bit. So a kid who's never seen snow before got on a plane. Of course, my uncle couldn't get me from the airport, so I took one of those little small charter planes from Minneapolis to St. Cloud. The plane's rocking the whole time. I got out, and then St. Cloud happened. I think for me, I was in shell shock. I walked in school as one of the few colored kids, as I would call it, and everything stopped. But I think that's the first time in my life I felt a sense of comfortable family, and things kind of started to take off for me. I started to play basketball, things took off. I was highly recruited. Dan Munson gave me the opportunity to be a Gopher, and I thought this was the best place. So I have my 11-year-old son here, Michael, and then I have my best friend who I call my brother, because some people don't know, but during my journey in high school, my uncle actually came to me and said, hey, going into my senior year, I have an executive position that's gonna move me to Dallas. I have to take this position, it's life-changing, so we have to move to Dallas. At this point in my life, I'm like, not again, here we go. So my brother stepped in and his family took me in. So that I can finish playing high school basketball here in Minnesota. And that's why I call him my brother, because I think since we were, 16 years old, we've been best friends. It started on the basketball court, and it's always been that way. So he's seen as my brother and not as a best friend because of the relationship that I have with him and his family and how they took me in and care for me as their own son. So during that time, I was here through 2004 through 2009. I call it the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's not because of just basketball. I think that's for me, myself. I think a lot of the transition you go through as a Gopher athlete, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn how to grow as a man, but most importantly, you learn, life lessons. You do. You really learn a lot. Through my time here, I had Coach Munson, who I was blessed to play for. He saw a lot in me, so he warranted me that opportunity to be a Gopher, and I appreciate him for that. Jim Molinari, who stepped in for 1 year, who I have a close relationship with to this day. He still sends me a crazy text message every once in a while, but he was very impactful in that 1 year that he was here in that transition. I think for me, he was the one that actually turned over a leaf in my brain of what hard work was. He made me stay in his office. I remember we spent a night in his office doing homework, and he said, we're not going home until it gets done. He was just that type of coach. And then we transitioned over to Coach Smith. We were sitting over in Bierman, and I'll never forget, it was a cold winter day, and the door opens, and in comes Coach Smith with a trench coat that kind of flew behind him like Shaft. And that was the first day that we realized what college basketball was all about. Coach Smith was what we needed. He was a father figure. He was hard. He was tough. But he was a great coach. He was a hell of a coach. The things that he instilled in us as basketball players, they were so impactful. They're still in me to this day. I thank him every time I see him or I bump into him. I always want to give Coach Smith a hug, because I find myself parenting my son the same way Coach Smith parented me. As 14, 15-year-old guy, like 15 guys sitting in the locker room, you all think you're a man. You all think that, life is great, everything is good. But what we don't realize is there was a whole world going on outside that we knew nothing about. All we cared about was where we're getting our next meal, what party we were going to, are we doing our homework, what our girlfriend was doing. We cared about things that didn't matter, but he kept us grounded. He really did. He kept us grounded, and I will always appreciate him for what he did. I think the day that I graduated college, he called us in his office. I probably shouldn't be telling this, but I will. And he wrote us a check. He did. We left here with something. He was the first person, I think, in my time dealing with the coach that it was more than basketball. He wrote us a check, and I looked at him like, what is this for? He said, this was your commitment. This is my commitment to you because you did your commitment to me. You finished school, you graduated. So this is just a little bit of something for you to take on and start your life with. I had a little short stint overseas in South America where I wanted to play basketball. But during that time, I was having my first child, my daughter, and I'll never forget, I woke up one day and I was like, this is over, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I didn't want to be a paycheck. I didn't want to just send money home and not be in my daughter's life. So that day, I vowed to myself that I was going to figure it out. I was going to be home, I was going to be present in my child's life, and I was going to make a difference as a father. So through that time, you figure it out. You want to go in sales, you do all types of stuff. I did it all. I did sales, and then through that time period, went through a divorce. And I was faced with a question. What are you going to do? Are you going to coach college basketball? Are you going to be around? I chose to stick around, so I went into education. It was interesting. I'll never forget leaving sales, going into education. I looked at my first paycheck and I was like, wow, this is rough. But I stuck it out for 4 years. I wanted to be around. I wanted to keep the schedule with my kids, help them do their homework. And then through that time period, COVID happened. I was actually in St.Coud as an administrator. And something just went off. We had a situation that happened in school, and one teacher, she just said, I don't care. She kind of walked off. And I went back to my office and I kind of thought to myself, it was like, this sucks. Like, I come to work every single day, and it doesn't matter if I put in 10%, 100%, I get the same paycheck. And I told myself that day that I just need to make a change in my life. So of course, I looked around, and through basketball, you meet a lot of people. I called up one of my friends who was in hotel development, and we were having a conversation. He said, you want a job? I was like, yeah. He's like, you're gonna travel a lot, it's hard. Everything that basketball is. I said, of course, I want it. Let's sign me up. So I took a job that I'm currently in right now, going into my 3rd year in hotel development for Wyndham Hotels. So I actually go around, I work with owners from Minnesota all the way down to Missouri in hotel conversions. I go in, I negotiate the contracts, the royalty fees, and whatnot. And it's a sense of comfort. It gives me the sense of, AAU basketball, the toughness, the grit of, just having fun. It's not easy. It's not something that a lot of people can do. I see people lose their jobs every other week, but I find joy in it. It's something that I'm good at. It gives me a peace of mind, but it also, it gives me the ability to give my children a good life. In my free time, I wanted to stay close to the game, so me and my brother have both coached AAU basketball since that day I got back from playing overseas. We wanted to give back to kids. We figured if we were going to do this, we wanted to give them an honest, true perception of what it's like to be across the street. I think a lot of kids have aspirations of being a gopher or being a college athlete, but they don't know the half of what it takes to actually be over there. I tell a lot of guys it's easy to get there, but it's harder to stay. Because the number one thing about being over there is it's a business. You have to understand that. It's bigger than basketball, and when you figure that out, I think a lot of stuff, it starts to make sense to you. So right now we have the opportunity to coach with D1 Minnesota. It's one of the bigger AAU programs around. We're sponsored by Adidas. I've had the pleasure of coaching a lot of kids, a couple of kids that are across the street now. And had some good conversations with Coach Ben. I love the way the program is going. I think for a lot of us that are sitting here, I think a lot of you have questions about this kid, that kid. I see it. I'm not a big social media person, but I do pay attention. I think for everybody that's in that room, this room right here, I would love for you all to, when we're on social media, be mindful of the things and the conversations that we say, or what you hear, or what you spread to other people. Because there's always the kids that want to come here, they're reading it, they're looking at it, their parents are paying attention to it. And that sometimes you would not believe is a deciding factor if a kid really wants to come to Minnesota. I love the U, I do. At first I didn't appreciate it. But now me and my brother, we have conversations all the time about the hard times, not having food, struggling mentally, emotionally, financially. I think right now it goes back to when I was across the street as a Gopher. When we were losing games, I was on a 7, I think we won, me and Spencer, and those guys, we were on like a 7-game, we won 7 games one year. That was rough. It was brutal. But what you guys don't know in that year, we fought. We would fight each other. We were hard-nosed. We practiced as hard as you could practice. And looking back on it, it was actually, it gave us a sense of pride, because if you look at some of the years later, we did have better years. And I think that year molded some of the guys, because if you look at that roster, we didn't quit. I think Spencer, Al, Lawrence McKenzie, we all stayed. We could have transferred, we could have walked away, but we all had this thing about being a quitter. I don't think none of us were quitters. We all love Minnesota. I grew to love Minnesota and call it home. And I want to see great kids coming over. I think next year you guys are blessed. I think you guys are getting 2 phenomenal basketball players in Grayson Grove and Isaac Usama. Isaac is probably one of the most talented point guards that I've ever coached in my time in AAU basketball. He's fantastic. And I think people know he lives 3.5 hours away. Isaac never missed one practice, not one. We would actually tell him, stay home. It's 3 hours, snowstorm, didn't matter, he was there. Stay home. Yes, coach, he played hurt, he played sick. But he played for Minnesota, he did. He really played for the state. When we go out, we play in these different tournaments, we're seeing talent that you guys in this room would not believe is there at the age group. So for that, I do applaud Coach Ben, because the amount of schools that were after Isaac, yeah, it was a lot. And Coach Ben did a great job, and his staff did a great job of recruiting Isaac and making him feel like Minnesota was the right place, and Grayson making it feel like this was the right place for them. So for me, I'm an open book. I think a lot of you guys have read that this past year, I had a little bit of a scare. I think as my time here, I also grew to be stubborn. You kind of, as an athlete, you're kind of invincible a little bit. You're taught you don't show pain, you don't show weakness. It's a bad sign. So going to the doctor over the course of time, you get a physical, and people, they tell you, get yourself checked out. So I would go in, get my yearly checkup, and I was like, hey, I have headaches. They were like, oh, you're okay, you just got to manage your stress a little bit better. But this year was different. I walked in, I changed my doctor. I will admit I'm cheap, so I went in because I wanted $1,000 off my deductible. So I went in, and I wanted to be a little bit more honest this year. So my doctor, she read, they give you a little iPad and they tell you, hey, fill out what's going on. So she looked at it and she goes, based off of this, you're clinically depressed. I'm like, I'm not depressed, I'm just being honest. She's like, hey, I wanna talk to you a little bit more. So through that time, I told her, I said, hey, just on LED lights, on new cars, lights in my peripherals, they just really bother me. It feels like things are just squeezing in. So she says, okay, we're gonna run some tests. I said, okay, a sales guy, I'll be back Monday. She goes, okay, just stay here, I'll be back. So of course she didn't believe me, so she sent in another nurse. They took my blood. So I get home, maybe an hour later I get a phone call, and it's the nurse, and she goes, hey, I need you to come back on Monday. And I'm like, oh, why? I just gave blood. She goes, no, your testosterone level is off the charts. It's like in the 900s. I'm like, is that a good thing? She goes, nah, yeah, but we want to have you back. So I came back Monday, and I think your testosterone goes from like 240 all the way up to like 850 or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but it's around those numbers. So I went back Monday, drew my blood, and my testosterone was down to 44, double digits. So she told me, hey, I think I have an idea what's going on. I want you to get an MRI. And I'm like, hey, can you tell me what's going on? She's like, no, I don't want to tell you. So again, I go get an MRI. We go through the whole process, and they schedule a Zoom meeting. If you've ever dealt with U of M doctors, they're very secretive. They don't give you they don't give you a little bit at all. You gotta, if it's not their specialty, they don't speak on it. They just pass you along to the next person. Long story short, I found out through the MRI that I had a brain tumor. That it was growing, it was a massive brain tumor. It was a little bit bigger than a golf ball, and it was sitting right in between my eyes, and that's where I was feeling the pressure. So one day, if I didn't address it, I would have woke up blind. My vision was starting to get a little blurry, where I could see, but it would just take me sometimes a little bit longer to focus. So through that process, of course, they give you options. My options were take medication for the rest of your life, which may not help, have surgery, or you can just do what some people do, go on and live your life and just hope for the best. So I decided for surgery. I wanted to take the surgery route. And through this process, it's very interesting because you're looking at different doctors of who you want to be your surgeon. And I never forget, I walked in, and it was a young doctor over at the U, and he looked every bit of 20 years old when he walked in the room. And I looked at him like, Doc, like, how long have you been doing this? He said, a while. And in my head, I already was saying no. And I looked at him and I said, well, how many people have you lost doing this? He goes, none. And then he tapped me on my shoulder. He goes, you play basketball here, right? I go, yeah. He goes, just like basketball, basketball players, I'm very cocky. I'm one of the best. He's like, you're in great hands with me. I'll take care of you. And for some odd reason, I felt a sense of, I felt a sense of comfort with him. So through the whole process, you go in. So there's two teams. There's a neurosurgery team that goes in and open you up, and then there's a brain surgery team that goes in and they take the tumor out. It was an 8.5-hour surgery that I went through. And through that time, going through it, you get there, they lay you down on the bed, they strap you down, and everything flashes before your eyes. Am I gonna wake up? And I remember her just forcefully kind of putting the anesthesia on my face for me to kind of knock out. When I woke up, I remember tears coming down my eyes because I was like, wow, I made it. Okay, so through that time, everything's good. It's not invasive surgery. They go through your nose. It's very unique how it happens. I was there, 2 days? They let me out in 2 days, walked out on my own, everything was fine. I was home in the bed, and they tell you to look for a slow drip out of your nose. You get a slow drip, you need to come back in, something's off. So I went to the restroom, my wife, she was like, is everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I think a slow drip hit the toilet, but I don't know, and I just wanted to lay down. My head, I got a headache that was on 10. It felt like somebody was just hitting me in the head with a bat. And I told her, I just want to lay here. I don't want to go. I just want to lay down. She was like, no, we need to go to the hospital. So we got up. She drove me to the car. Her and my mother. They drove me back down to the U. And I'm allergic to any major anesthetics like ketamine or anything that they give you for major pain. So they had to give me Benadryl. So during this time, I'm really doped up on Benadryl. I'm just like all over the place. And the doctor looks at me. He holds my face and he says, hey, we have to do another surgery. You have air pockets that are forming in your brain. If we don't get in and do it, you're gonna die. So we went through the process. I had another surgery, another 7.5-hour surgery with a different team. They go in, they fix the problem. Day 2 in the hospital, my nose is still draining. I'm still having problems where, they can't get me right. I can't, I'm not functioning properly. So, I have to have a spinal tap. I spent, 16 days in the hospital across the street. During that time, I got a wake-up call. I think this is one of the most important times that I've ever spent in my life anywhere. I was walking laps because, they get you up and they want you to move, and they'll strap you up on your waist because of your bodily functions. They just want everything to properly work. And every turn I would make, I would run into a different person and like, oh, it gets better. And I'm looking at everybody like, what are they talking about? Like, I'm fine. And I go back and the lady goes, a lot of people on this floor are here for hospice. And I'm like, wow, I had no clue. A lot of people, they were dying of cancer. So that night I was in my bed and the rooms are kitty corner. And I looked across and there was a guy, every morning he would wave to me, he would say hello, he was super nice, he would come to my door, he would speak. And I was really grumpy because I was there a lot. I wanted to get back to work. I was thinking of everything outside other than living in the moment. That night, it was about 8:30. I hear his machine. It codes. They run in, they pronounce time of death, they cover him up, and the nurse comes over to me. He goes, "I'm sorry that you had to see that. I apologize. We didn't get to your curtain and shut it." And I think that's when life actually hit me that, every day that we're living is precious time. I think for me, it was precious time because I think when my personal career, you find a sense of success, you find out that things are going good for you, so you yearn for it. You care about that more than you really care about the little things, like waking up, saying hello to your kids, I have time, and I think at that point in my life, it hit me that I needed to slow down a little bit and value time. So the way I am right now in my life is just, I'm blessed. I think every day that I'm here, every day that I'm around, I try to find the positive in life. It's like my time here at the Gophers. It wasn't pretty. It doesn't have to be. I don't care what anybody thinks about my time here or what I did. I did it my way, but I was committed. And I think that's the things that I try to instill in my children. Commitment. When you say yes, I'm gonna do something, do it. When you do it to your best of your ability. It's okay to fail because we all fail in life. And I think it's about, how you look at it and how you handle it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I learned across the street, is that, you do anything you want to do in life. And I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of those guys over there, they don't know it yet. But people in this room, you guys have the key and the ability to change those lives over there by how you communicate with them. So while you're here, I appreciate every one of you guys because there was a guy in this room, I'm not gonna call his name, that changed my life, that took time to talk to me, and I always appreciated that guy. He gave me my first job as a golden dunker. He gave me my first job. So I do appreciate each and every one of you guys that are in this room because you do change lives. You do, and I don't think you know that, but one of those players over there that you communicate with, they're gonna listen to you. They're gonna reach back out to you at some point in their life when they're at a wall, and they're gonna ask for help. So if you have the time and you think it's in the best interest of help them, please, because that's where I figure out, that's where I am today in life. It was all about help. Because it's hard to be a gopher or be somebody over there that's in a prideful situation where you're a gopher. I am proud to be a gopher, but it's very hard today for kids to say, "Hey, I need help. Can you help me?" So that's it. That's my story. You guys have questions? I'm here to answer anything you guys got.